Hello, salutations, what it do? It's Dr. Gamer back at you with another Marvel's Avengers video. I just had to make a quick update because I've been getting messages about this from some of my subscribers. There is currently a rumor swirling around the Marvel's Avengers community that the Loot 2.0 gear overhaul is no longer happening. That seems to have come from a new video from content creator Yongyea, who, as you can see, made a video with the thumbnail that says Loot won't get 2.0 overhaul. So I had to investigate and look into this. And of course, after I looked into it, I can definitively tell you that this is in fact not true. So I'm going to be addressing that in this video. But before we get into it, make sure you smash that like button. It helps tremendously with the YouTube overlords, and make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. We are on the road to 2,000 subs. I'm trying to hit that by next month, by E3. And I know that we can do that. We are over halfway there. So thank you for your support so far. Without further ado, let's jump right into this video. So I watched the full Yongyea video, and he does this pretty much, I think, once a month. He'll make a video, and it's usually the same video about Marvel's Avengers. He'll basically just trash the game, and he'll have usually the same stuff. He'll bring up the player base, and he'll only use the Steam charts, which aren't an actual accurate reflection of the player base, as I'll get into later. And he'll look at Reddit, or he'll respond to something else in the game. So this time around, he talked about basically the Red Room event and rumors that have come out because of the live stream. And what I can tell is an article. So the origin of this rumor, and in the case of Yongyea, just straight up misinformation in this thumbnail, is that from what I can tell, someone took a clip on Reddit, and Paul Tassi actually links to this in his Forbes article about it. They have a 30-second clip of Andy being asked about the Gear 2.0 overhaul. And you can see the post here. It says, Andy said in the dev stream that it would be smaller tuning patches until it makes sense. This has me very concerned about the scope of the rework. It makes me question why it's taking so long. And the title, of course, is we aren't getting a definitive Loot 2.0 patch. So from what I can tell, Paul Tassi, looking for some Marvel's Avengers content to write, went on Reddit, saw that, and just immediately wrote this article. Marvel's Avengers isn't getting a definitive Loot 2.0 patch, which I expect this kind of standard from a YouTube content creator, but I would generally expect something better from a Forbes journalist. But here we are in 2021. that's where we are today. So in the Paul Tassi article, which as you see links back not to live stream, but to the Reddit post talking about a clip from the live stream, he says, in a recent live stream, the concept of a Loot 2.0 rework that the community keeps bringing up was once again brought up. And this time we got an answer that definitely says there is no singular grand rework of gear coming. The recent changes being referred to, he continues, I believe are improving exotics to some degree, but players have been expecting something a lot more transformative than the current system, and they're not terribly amused that it's taken 8 months to get to the point we are now. And from that Paul Tassi article, we have the Yongyea thumbnail. It gets worse for Marvel's Avengers. Loot won't get 2.0 overhaul. So now there are people on Twitter, on Reddit, saying that the Marvel's Avengers Loot 2.0 has been canceled and the sky is falling. So that's not true. And the problem is this original Reddit poster essentially misinterpreted what Andy said. What Andy actually said was that there would be no big Loot 2.0 patch. That means there's not going to be one giant patch where all the things we want in terms of gear are just crammed into it. There's not going to be, a 3 or 5 gig patch just dedicated to gear. What they're going to do is roll out features to the gear overhaul over the course of different patches. Instead of putting everything in one patch, they're going to spread it out over multiple patches. That way they can fine tune and evaluate based on feedback. And that's definitely a good idea, because as we saw with one such rollout, the patch 1.7, which was meant to address the problem with the stats and blues dropping frequently for 130 players, what it did was it did in fact give us much better gear drops, but it also was kind of canceled out by a bug that gave 130 players level 127 and level 129 gear instead of the blues we were getting before and the occasional 120 gear. So the patch that's coming out tomorrow, as I'm recording this Tuesday, is meant to fix that particular bug. But the overall goal of that patch was to improve the gear drop. So that's why you're seeing people with exotics that now have 80, I have like 3 stats. Like I got a roll for Hawkeye in the Mega Hive that had, 81 precision, and then it had, I think, like 70 resolve and another stat in the 70s. So much higher than what we were getting before. And overall, I'm getting better combinations for my builds, but it's harder to get to that than it was because of the bugs, which hopefully once that's addressed, gear farming will be a lot more rewarding. Obviously, there are still issues with gear outside of just the 127 and 129 bug. There's currently a bug with the Mega Hive where the first 2 gauntlets grant you gray gear, the lowest possible gear in the game, but they are in fact still planning on rolling out an overhaul. So they already said we're getting loadouts, and they're going to have a post about that. So that's essentially what they're going to do. They're going to roll out different features and aspects of the gear overhaul, and then they'll put it out. They'll be able to evaluate the feedback we give them and see if it works, and then they'll keep moving from there. So we'll have a patch for loadouts, we'll have a patch for crafting, etc. That's how it's going to work. That does not mean we're not getting gear overhaul at all. That's completely ridiculous and a hilarious misread of what Andy said, and also goes against everything Bill and Andy have been telling us for months about gear, which is why you need to take what you hear from people like Yongyea and Paul Tassi with a grain of salt. Because yes, even though they cover Marvel's Avengers, they don't really. They talk about it, but mainly in the case of Yongyea for clicks. But Tassi, he mainly focuses on Destiny. He'll give Marvel's Avengers a try, but he'll often, and Yongyea often do, is they'll just take shortcuts and look at Reddit. If you want to really get your Marvel's Avengers info from people that are actually playing the game frequently. So listen, sorry to plug, but myself, I cover the game fairly. Tony Bing, if you want a more negative or harsher look at the game, you can look at Kyle even, because even though he has a lot of problems with the game, he also will come up with reasonable suggestions, and he actually at least plays the game every day and has actual insight into it. But someone that basically covers the game once a month and really just skims Reddit for a story isn't a source that you want to be trusting. And you definitely shouldn't be trusting Reddit at all because it is really a source of misinformation, as is the case here. So there is, again, a loot overhaul coming. It has not been canceled. It's just not going to be all in one patch. Now, as for the other things in Yongyea's video, very, very fair. I've covered the Red Room takeover before. I think Yongyea said that you only get a nameplate for the Red Room takeover, which isn't true. You get a gear set, and you get of legendaries, and you get an exotic, which is why people were pretty ticked off about not being able to complete it. Those are pretty decent rewards. I've seen some pretty also good rolls that people got from that event. But yes, it is obviously a bug. People, notably Lajun, arguably the biggest creator in the Marvel's Avengers community, was on stream and not able to complete the Red Room takeover because of the bug. And as we saw in the live stream, they aren't going to be able to fix the bug in time. And instead of just extending the event, because, why not? It's not a big deal. They're just going to end the event like normal. And they're also not going to compensate anyone that missed out on it. They're just promising to bring it back later, which is obviously completely unacceptable. They should have either extended the event and just kept it up there while working on the fix, or just, if they were going to just end the event, compensate the players who missed out on it accordingly, rather than promising to bring it back later. That's just ending it and saying, sucks for you. It's just not an acceptable response. So for sure, definitely deserve criticism there. As for the bit about the player base, again, I should just definitively just end this right now. If you're using the Steam charts to gauge the player base of Marvel's Avengers, you are spreading misinformation. I see this all the time. People look at the Steam charts, they say, oh, there's only 900 or whatever number of people playing the game right now. That's completely inaccurate. That's not an accurate reflection of the player base. That's also not even how that Steam chart is supposed to be read. So what Yongyea did is that he said there are only 900 people playing the game. And he even though he's showing the Steam charts, he doesn't make that distinction. And he also doesn't read the statistic he's reading correctly. So here's the reality. The overwhelming majority of players playing Marvel's Avengers play it on console. That has been the reality since launch. The PC version of the game was uniquely bad compared to the console version. It was unplayable for months. So the player base on PC dropped off much faster than it did everywhere else. And they were even reflected in the early numbers. There was a site called GameStat that had those numbers reflected, and they would show you what players were coming back, how many players were on these platforms. And the PlayStation player base was always massively higher. The PC player base was only at most 1% of the overall player population. So using those demographics to determine the overall player base is just simply disingenuous. And then when you're reading the Steam charts, the number you see isn't the total amount of people playing. What the Steam chart shows is concurrent players. There's a difference between concurrent and overall. Concurrent just means how many are playing at one time, not the total amount playing, period. Well, I live stream, so I'm shown concurrent viewers, not overall viewers until later on. So I could have a stream with, 40, 50 concurrent viewers, and at the end of the stream, I get the overall viewer count, which is like over 1,000. So if you're looking at, say, 900 concurrent players, you're not literally looking at 900 people total that are just on PC playing the game. The actual number would be substantially much higher than that, because people are going in and out throughout the day. They're not all playing at the same time. That's not how that works. They're playing throughout the day. So the overall number is not 300, it's not 900. It's actually much higher than that. It's just looking at who's playing how many at the same time. That's what the Steam chart is reflecting. So the PC player count is low, but it's pretty much irrelevant in gauging the overall number of players that are on Marvel's Avengers. Again, because the game heavily marketed towards PlayStation, and PlayStation users still have a reason to play, because a lot of them got the game for Spider-Man, and the numbers have consistently been much higher on there. And we know that the game has been financially successful. Not only did it sell a lot at launch, even if it did not quite hit their expectations, since then it has made its money. Square Enix released the financials showing that, as well as the fact that you have Crystal Dynamics opening a brand new studio, which isn't a thing you do when your game is dead and it's not making any money and has no players. No, you don't hire new people as Marvel's Avengers have. You don't open new studios as Marvel's Avengers had. So the reality is the game is far from dead, but it obviously definitely could be in a much better place in terms of the content and the way that they are responding to the community. But I just wanted to make sure that I got ahead of this misinformation, because it's going to spread. And I know I'm going to be getting questions about it on stream and seeing posts about it. And I wanted to make sure that I at least had a video that is pushing back on this, so you guys can actually get a perspective in the future. Again, definitely, I do like Paul Tassi overall, but don't get your news from Yongyea about Marvel's Avengers. And if you read an article and you look and their source is Reddit, assume that it's not true. That's all. If you found this video helpful, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to support the channel. Once again, I'll be back live streaming this game tomorrow on Tuesday. They're dropping that new patch, as I said, and I will be testing it out to make sure that it works. I'm Sadat the Gamer, signing out.